Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all good. Today we're going to be chatting about my January wrap up. I don't want to do it. Before we get into it, this is my first video I'm filming since I hit 10k. I cannot tell you how thankful I am. Like, my brain can't really wrap around it. Like, my brain doesn't really get it. That number of people, thank you so much. Thank you so much for 10k. Thank you so much for all your continued support. I actually want to do a 10k Q&A to celebrate this. So yeah, if you have any questions for the 10k Q&A, let me know down below and I'll include them in the video. Now, on a sadder note, I was in a bit of a slump in January, I ain't gonna lie. Some of you like caught on. I don't think I've uploaded that many vlogs in January. That's because I haven't read a lot. I mean, I read 8 books. It's not terrible. I'm hoping in my head I'll read like 10-ish in February, but considering it's the 3rd today when I'm filming this, and I haven't started a book yet, that's not great.
It's made a fool of me.
Second.
It's made a fool of me.
The way I do my wrap-ups is we're going to talk about all my reading statistics for the stats people of you out there, and then we'll talk about all the books I read, all 8 of them. I will put a timestamp down below if you are not interested in hearing the stats, but I love the stats. I use Ali from Hardback Hoarder's spreadsheet to track everything. I read a total of 3,043 pages this month, which is, I think, on average like 98 pages per day. My rule of thumb is that, like, minimum, I like to be above 100 pages a day on average. So it's not like quite where I want to be, but it's not that far off. It's like 2 less pages a day. Hopefully in February we can rectify that.
It's not realistic. It's just not realistic.
But I'm trying not to be too hard on myself because uni is very busy and I feel very overwhelmed. By the way, what do we think of this jumper? Is it ugly enough? I'm buying loads of clothes for my birthday that's just been. Like, that's what I asked for, was money for clothes. And I love it so much, but I know it's very ugly, but that's what we go for. Star rating. I gave 2 5 stars, but one of them was a reread, so it doesn't really count, and one was the end of a series. So I feel like I am craving a surprise 5 star. I want to be hit in the face by a 5 star. Like, I really want a surprise 5 stars. So hopefully we'll get that next month. I had 1 4.5 star, 2 4 stars, 1 3.5, 1 3, and 1 2. So my average rating is like a 3.8, which I think is fine. Like, it's fine. I think that's pretty much what my like overall forever average rating is like a 3.8. So it says here I read 7 physical books and 1 audiobook, but I think for most books I read along with the audiobook and the physical, so that's not quite true.
But I did tell a bit of a lie there.
I actually did a ton of audiobook reading this month and it got me through the month, and like I wouldn't even have read 8 books if I hadn't have read some audiobooks. In terms of genre, I read 1 contemporary, 4 fantasy, 1 historical, 1 horror, 1 mystery. Half of the books I read were fantasy books. Fantasy is always, I would say, like one of my highest read genres, just because like it's so popular, but I'm kind of like not in the mood. Like, I feel like I need a month's break from fantasy. I want more like mysteries and stuff right now. Half of the books I read this month I categorized as own voices, be that to do with race or sexuality or something along those lines. And then in terms of author race, I read from 2 Black authors, 2 Asian authors, and 4 white authors. So in my reading goals for the year, a big goal for me this year is to make sure that the kind of percentage of white authors is 50% or below, ideally below, but I think 1 month's worth of reading isn't the best indicator because, again, it will be very much determined by the videos that I do and things like wrapped up, or when I have no choice on choosing a book, it does make it more difficult to ensure that, because I can't ensure that. You know, like 2 out of the 3 of the videos I'm doing this month for vlogs, I am out of control in what I read. So only in that 1 video can I like make sure that I am reading authors of colour. So it does make it more difficult, but I'm happy with 50% in 1 month. Like, as long, you know, it's a good starting point. And I read from 1 debut author, 5 authors I'd read before, and 2 authors were new to me. 7 were part of a series, 1 was a standalone. That's pretty crazy. I read a lot of series books. this month. I think that's all of our stats. So let's get into talking about the books. The first book I read this month, I read on the first day of the year, and that is When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Ni Vo. So this is the second book in the Singing Hills cycle, and these are really short novellas. They're beautiful, beautiful covers, beautiful writing, all about this cleric called Chi, who is a non-binary main character, which I absolutely love to see. I don't think that we read, or we have enough non-binary main characters in fiction. They are a cleric who goes from like town to town, area to area, and they have to write things down and record human history, I would say. And in this, they and their companion are cornered by these tigers who make them tell this story, and they go back and forth with the tigers, and the tigers correcting them on the story of this tiger who fell in love with a scholar, this sapphic relationship that is kind of like this folklore tale almost. I preferred it to the first book. I mean, I loved the first book, but I loved this one even more because of that storytelling element where like you'd hear the story one way and then you'd hear the story another way. And I think that was just really interesting way of examining like folklore and not mythology, but like old tales, you know, like tales through the grapevine, and how the truth can be like not twisted, but you know, adjusted as the story goes through many hands and many mouths. And Ni Vo's writing is just absolutely beautiful. Like, it's just such gorgeous writing that is really emotionally impactful and just really, I feel like, cuts to the core. I absolutely loved it. I would really recommend this book series. I think it's just like stunning. It's absolutely stunning, and I cannot wait to read everything that Ni Vo puts out. I can't wait for her first full-length book coming out this year. The next book I read this month was a reread, and it was The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. This was 5 stars, obviously.
Of course, 100%. Of course, 100%. Of course, and of course.
In this series, we follow Vasya from birth, like we follow her from before she's born, to this young woman who can communicate with magic and spirits and the Winter King, and it's very magical and set in old Russia in winter, and it's snowy and cozy. Vasya's in a very new environment, and it's very interesting to see how she has to negotiate it and her role as a woman and gender differently, how she has to use her magic and understanding of magic to get through the situation. It's just very beautiful. It reads like a fairy tale. This is like one of the only books I've ever found that reads like an old Russian fairy tale, like in the style that it's written, and it just feels like this warm hug. I just love this series so much. If you like fantastical stories with strong young women, I loved it, but it was always going to be a 5 star, so like I feel like it doesn't really count because I didn't read this for the first time. This is like an old love. Then next I read the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I gave this 4.5 stars. I was absolutely shook. So basically I read this from my booktubers give me reading prompts video, and Aaron gave me the prompt to read the most intimidating book on my TBR, and this was it. Like, I was so scared of this book.
It was scary. It was really scary.
I would not have read this for like a year without Aaron basically forcing me to. In this, we follow 3 girls/women. We follow one young girl who has just learned that she has the power of origins, which is people who have power over the earth and like the energy within the earth. So she's just learned that she has that power. We follow a young woman as she is on this mission with the kind of company or organization who train origins, because origins are very feared of in society because of their power. They're very much shunned, and so like the only place they can work really is within this company, and she is on a mission with this man that she has to have a child with. And then the last woman we follow is this woman who has been hiding her powers for many years, and she finds out that her son has been murdered by her husband. The 5th season is happening, and seasons are where there's like this event caused by an origin and the world is ending. And so we just see all these different women negotiating the world around them, and it's very confusing.
I haven't got the slightest idea.
For the first third, I was like, girl, I have no idea what's going on. I like didn't love the first third because I was so confused. Like, I was stumped. But I feel like something happens towards the end of the first third where you start to like make connections and understand this complex world.
I've connected the 2 dots. You didn't connect shit, but I've connected them.
If you started it and like you're not enjoying it at the start, Like, just take it slow. I would recommend the audiobook. It definitely helped me through that first bit. Just like ease yourself into this because felt so dumb. I felt so dumb. It was this incredibly complex, clever fantasy, and I can't wait to read the next 2 books in the series. I feel like I need to read them soon to like actually understand what's going on. But also I'm in a slump, so I feel like maybe not February, because February I need to get out of this slump. Maybe sometime after that we'll read it, because I just want to like get through this series while I still remember vaguely what happens. Then next I read The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, and I gave this 4 stars. Now this could have been a 1.5 star, but contrary to the 5th season where it was the first third I didn't really like. I didn't really like the last third of this. I just found it a bit boring, like the last third. But anyway, in this we're following Emmanuel, who lives in this cult, and I just love cults. Like the vibe is just perfection. So interesting.
This is disgusting. I like it though.
Basically, years and years ago, there were these 4 witches who brought plague on the land, and they were driven out by the prophet, and the prophet is like the head of the church, the head of the cult. Emmanuel gets given her dead mother's diary by these mysterious figures in the woods, in the dark wood, which is like a place that you're not supposed to go. It kind of goes on from there. It is the story of this like toxic cult, which is backstabbing and betrayal. It's the story of Emmanuel negotiating her position in this cult, as she is mixed race, and her father was killed for having a relationship with her mother, and so she's kind of like always on the outskirts, is kind of rejected by the cult in many ways because she is mixed race. It is horror, but it's very light horror. So like I would say, I read this for Aaron's book club, the Busy Bee book club. We talked about how like it's got elements of horror, elements of historical, and elements of fantasy, and we said like if you are a veteran, like you read a lot of fantasy, but you want to get into one of the other genres like horror, this is a really great way to do that, and vice versa. So if there's any of those genres you want to dip your toe in, but still feel familiar because you read the other genres, this is a great way to do that, because it's kind of light in all its elements of those things. It's light and it's fantasy, it's light and it's historical, and it's light and it's horror. It's a good mix of them all, taking a little bit of them all. And so I feel like it's a great starting point in so many different genres for that reason. There was some really interesting relationships in here. I thought the writing was great. The vibes is what carried this book.
Set of the
book,
the actors, the storyline plots, literally I am obsessed. And I long to be in this
book.
Please make my dreams come true, someone that's watching this.
I read the whole thing to the Far Cry 5 soundtrack. Don't tell anyone. I love the Far Cry 5 soundtrack. I don't know if I can play it. I don't think I'm going to risk it because of copyright. But it's like... I'm going to read a ton more cult books this year. I already got a few lined up because it's just a bit of an obsession. Like if you have any good recommendations, let me know. I want all the cult books recommendations. After I read that one, maybe I should do a whole video on it. Let me know. Great book. I'm really excited for the second one in the series. I have no idea where it's going to go. I have no idea where it can go. I'm terrified, but I'm excited. Okay, and then the next book I read was This Time Will Be Different by Misa Suguria. This is a really cute contemporary. I read it by audiobook and I really did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was close to being a 4, but the ending was just a bit, I wouldn't say disappointing, just a bit meh. You know, like the ending was like, we went this whole way for that. But in this, our main character works in her family flower shop. I think it's her grandfather, had to sell it to this rich white American guy back in the day for a very small figure, and then bought it back for an extortionate amount. And then her mother, who doesn't really run the flower shop, it's more her and her aunt, her mother wants to sell it to the same family who had bought it and resold it for an extortionate amount. And obviously they don't want to do this, and so it's the story of anti-Asian racism in the US and the history of that, and a bit of activism and fighting for what you believe in, but it's also like a cute romance as well, so it kind of balances those two aspects, which I always really like from my contemporaries, like my young adult contemporaries. I like them to have like a serious topic that they're discussing, but also have like the cute romance side, or just have a serious topic. But I don't mind it when they have the both together. I thought this was really nice actually. I thought it was well written, I thought it was fun, I thought it was quick, fast paced. I really loved what I learned about like Asian history throughout America. I would recommend this if you're wanting like a quick audiobook on script with something that's like very easy to consume, because that's what I needed this month. I would say though that the ending, it felt a bit anticlimactic, and it felt like it didn't fit, like the realizations at the ending didn't fit with the tone of the rest of the book and what it felt like we'd been building up to. We were on our way to being taught a certain lesson and the lesson switched at the end, if that makes sense. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. Like, it was going to be a 4-star, but I just like downvoted it half a star because of the end. Okay, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't want to talk about it.
I do not want to comment.
Why? Why?
The next book I read this month was The Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerizing Girl by Theodora Goss. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. I loved it very much. I loved it so much. This series is like one of my favorite series ever, and I'm not okay. Like, I'm not okay that it's over. I'm not feeling it. That doesn't fit with my fantasy. No, I'm not here for it. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not.
I can't believe that.
I'm really sad. And I said in the vlog that I was incapable of like making up thoughts and that I'd have a more succinct feelings about it in my wrap up. Not happening. I still don't know how to articulate my love for this book. So in this series, we are following these girls who are like daughters of famous Victorian men. So we have Mary Jekyll and Dr. Hyde, we have Beatrice Rappaccini, we have Catherine Monroe, we have Justine Frankenstein. The men in their lives had been members of the society called the Société des Alchimistes. And this series is kind of about investigating the society and uncovering things about it. But this book doesn't really focus on that. It more focuses on so in this, Sherlock and Watson are in this, and there's a lot of characters from Sherlock and Watson's alive. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil anything. However, it's perfection. Like, it's so good. I know Kayla just read the first one for her video, which was like reading BookTuber's favorites of the year. And I never would have recommended this series to her because it's like not her kind of thing. If you like Victorian history, fantasy kind of books, if you like Stalking Jack the Ripper, this is better than that times 1,000. It has mystery elements, but the mystery isn't what's driving it, I would say. It's more so the characters' relationships. These girls, I've always said I would die for them. I stand by it. I would die for them.
And me and my gals, we eat chicken nuggets together.
They are my favourite characters that I have ever read. And I refuse. I can't emphasize you enough how much I refuse to believe this is the end. Like, I'm just not entertaining it and not allowing that to happen. So I loved this. It was 5 stars. This series is going to be something I reread and reread and reread and reread. I love, my favourite part of the book is how Catherine, one of our characters, is writing it. So it's all from her, not from her perspective, but you find little nuggets of her in it, and the other girls cut in and like rebuke or complain about what she's writing and go, oh, it didn't happen like that. And I just love them as a collective and their relationships with one another and how it builds over the course of this. I love the kind of like light tongue-in-cheek way we look at some of our classic characters like Sherlock and Watson, like Dracula. I think it's like a really refreshing way to look at them, and it's just so much fun. It's the best series ever. If you haven't started it yet, please do. I love it so much, and this is like, I've never found a comfort series that I just want to read again and again and again, but I think I will definitely reread the first book at some point this year and probably the second one. Then I read Supernova by Marissa Mayer. I gave this 2 stars. So this is like a superhero versus villain series. This is the last book in the series, and she's not gonna go there. I did not like the ending to this at all. I didn't feel like it made sense, and I find the writing in this series to be very basic and not particularly engaging, but the ending made 0 sense. I don't even want to talk about it. If you want to hear more about it, here's the vlog that it's in, but it was just shite. Like, the ending was not good. It made no sense. Characters acted in ways that made no sense. It wasn't a fitting end to so many of our loose threads in the series. No matter what someone has done, no matter how much someone has like fucked you over, it's fine. Forgiveness. You know what I mean? Like, it just makes no sense. I don't care.
I was angry. I was angry.
It wasn't good. I'm still gonna try out anything that Marissa Mayer writes because I loved the Lunar Chronicles like years ago. Maybe I should reread them or reread the first one, and if I still like it, then I know it's not a problem with her. I just had a bit of a problem with this series. I don't think superhero stuff is for me. Everyone said this was like the best in the series, such a fitting end. We're not gonna talk about it anymore, okay?
I'm ready to go home, Babs. I'm knackered.
And then the last book I read this month was The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This is her last book in the original Trudy Davis trilogy. And in this, Stevie, our main character, is kind of like this young detective who's trying to figure out the case of the old Ellingham mystery, which happened at this school in the 1930s, but she's also trying to figure out kind of modern day mysteries. And I'm giving this, what did I give this in the end? 3 stars, I think? Yeah. This is another bit of a disappointing ending. It's something a lot of people say when reviewing it, and I knew that going into it, that people aren't happy with who the baddie is. And it's like true, like it's not a good combination of the 3 books. This is still a really fun murder mystery series. I've said 1,000 times that it is a great palette cleanser. I really love the mystery elements of it. I love the setting at this old school that was built in the 1930s, which is super opulent and mysterious, and there's all these like hidden passages and stuff. So there's a lot of elements I love about it. The ending was a bit disappointing and a bit whack. Like it was a little bit weird. Like I still don't really know how that happened. It didn't really make sense. I think the story was too dragged out across the 3 books, and there was not enough elements to it to drag it out across the 3 books. So there we have it. That is my January wrap up. Let me know down below how your reading in January went, if it went a bit better than mine, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you very, very soon. Bye!